Hello, one and all. Welcome to the Verse of the Day Plus. Um, on this January 15th, 2020. Today, the verse of the day is coming from John chapter 8, verse 31 through 32. To the Jews who had believed in him, Jesus said, "If you hold to my teachings, you are my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Well, this goes to anybody, for anybody. If you hold to Jesus' teachings, you are a disciple of Christ. And this goes also for the truth for anybody. If you know the truth will set you free because it's so much better than believing a lie or trying to believe a lie because it, I don't know how to explain it. For those that know, it is freeing, telling the truth. Although a lot of times, even though you have to face the consequences of whatever that might be. So I guess that's it for the verse of the day. So let's get on to um, our reading. Uh, Covenant of Peace. If we look at another incident in Elijah's time, again we see many suffering from the actions of some. Israel was in the desert camp at Arcadia Grove. We read, some of the men defiled themselves by having sexual relations with the local Moabite women. These women invited them to attend sacrifices to their gods. So the Israelites feasted with them and worshipped their gods of Moab. In this way, Israel joined in the worship of Baal of Peor, causing the Lord's anger to blaze again against his people. Again, notice the word some. God had told his people not to worship other gods, give themselves to foreign women, or commit sexual immorality, disobedience, actions of some brought judgment to the entire congregation, nation. We will see this again, but not many were affected by this judgment. The Lord issued the following command to Moses: seize all the ringleaders and execute them before the Lord in broad daylight. So his fierce anger will turn away from the people Israel. Numbers chapter 25, verse 4. Again, we discover the actions of the ringleaders. Some caused the fierce, jealous anger of the Lord to burn against Israel. They were the ones, they were one nation, one people, one body. About the same time, Moses issued the command to execute the ringleaders. A particular Israelite man named Simon took a Midianite woman named Kozabah into his tent in front of Moses and all the people. This was known as unacceptable disobedience to the word of the Lord. Immediately, Phinehas, the son of Elzar and the grandson of Aaron, grabbed a spear and ran into Simon's tent and thrust the spear through not only Simon but also Kozium, executing both with one jab. So we read. So the plagues against the Israelites were stopped but not because 24,000 people had died. Numbers 25, 8, 9. Once again, many died, many suffered, many were affected by the actions of some. The nation was one in God's eyes. God then declares Phinehas and the sons of Elzar, the son of Aaron, the priest, has turned back the wrath from the children of Israel because he was zealous with the zeal among men, so that he did not consume the children of Israel in my zeal. Numbers 25, 10 and 11, verses 10 and 11, New King James Version. Phinehas' passion was God's passion, the good of the entire nation. Phinehas was the one who brought the charge for better. It didn't take everyone, just one man. Paul was one man who was passionate with God's passion for the church. At Corinth, he was the one who brought the charge to boldly confronting the church with truth. He took the word of God, the sword of the Spirit, and thrust it through the activity of the man living in sexual immorality. In the Old Testament, it was a physical spear. In the New Testament and today, the spear comes out when the body stands up and speaks the truth, even when others are turning a deaf ear or a blind eye to the known sin of one or some in the community. The last person Paul was thinking about was himself. He wasn't acting no different than my Navy SEAL friend. He put the good of the others before his own comfort and popularity. He even risked total rejection by the Church of Corinth. He was zealous for them, even when it turned out that the more he loved them, the less they loved him. Phinehas didn't care about himself. He knew he could have been accused of being harsh, cruel, unsympathetic, backwards, extreme to his belief, or old-fashioned. He was one man, and no one else was moving. What would people think, say, or do? Nothing, none of this mattered, the psalmist states. Phinehas had the courage to intervene. Psalms chapter 106, verse 30. He was zealous for God and for what God cared for, his people. He loved community. He was the agent of change. Now look at what God says about him. Therefore says, Behold, I gave him my covenant of peace, and it shall be to him and his descendants after a covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was zealous for God and made atonement for the children of Israel. Numbers chapter 25, verses 12 and 13, New King James Version. The statement was stood. The statement has stood out to me over many years of my Bible study. Not only did Moses write about it, but also the psalmist much later emphasized his reward. Then Phinehas stood up and intervened, and the plague was stopped, and that was accounted to him for righteousness to all the generations forevermore. Psalms chapter 106, verses 30 and 31, New King James Version. I remember the awe I felt when I first saw the great reward for this young man who took the risk of standing up for what pleased God. Not just temporary reward, but an eternal reward, one sealed with a covenant. God remembered God remember God never breaks his covenants. His reward is so great it would just affect him, but all his children and his children's children, children's children, to all the generations after them, including ours. All subsequent generations would be rewarded for his willingness to stand up for what was right in the eyes of God. When I saw this example of Phineas, I proposed that I would always speak the truth, even if the result would be a loss of love like Paul experienced. I could see the great reward for not only me, but for Lisa and her sons and their children for all generations to come. It would be a covenant of peace, one that cannot be never be broken. A blessing would endure from generation to generation. Hey Evan, how are you today? Thus far. Oh, where was I? Generation. Right there. Thus, it's been overwhelming to me, to see how passionately our sons serve God. I was always I was away from home ministering the gospel for at least half of the days of the every year they were growing up. Yet it seems the covenant of peace God promises to those who will be the agents of change was secured and protected in our children. I expected the same blessing for our grandchildren as well. Yeah, I had fun last night. I'm doing good. We're up to $405. Somebody, one of the original backers, has ordered the what's the name? The buckler ash can that I gave them to be available for $5. Uh, is there a blessing hidden in heeding the truth we've uncovered so far? Yes, it is the covenant of peace that is promised not only to you, but also to your descendants as long as you are a voice of change. As long as you are always zealous for God's ways, even when others are not. Are we seeing together how it is better to speak out using the sword of the Spirit in love than to remain silent and watch sin prevail and spread throughout our community of believers? To me, the answer is obvious, but I'll leave your determination to you. Take action. Here is the good news we've been waiting for. Take a firm stance for truth when done in love for God and his people. Put you in company with people who've received eternal covenant promises of blessing from God and determine the future not just for their lives but for their descendants too. Can you think of anyone else more powerful you could Or could you think of anything more powerful you could do for your prosperity? No worldly physical inheritance carries that promise. Money can be squandered in a generation or two or less. No amount of knowledge or wisdom amassed could possibly pass down to that many generations. Only an inheritance based on the promise of God's faithfulness could have such a long lasting impact. What legacy do you want to leave for future generations? How do you want to be remembered on earth? How do you want to be known in heaven? The greatest key to these desires coming to pass is how firmly you will stand for love and truth during your short years on earth. And that is the end of chapter 5. We start on chapter 6 tomorrow, the motivation. Uh, um, not sure what else to say. Not too many people here today, but these are getting some traction. We're using it, getting about 10 views. Not everybody's watching all the way through. They might be just watching the verse of the day. But hopefully, with using StreamYards, things become a little bit more stable. Although I am using OBS as well, allowing using one of the virtual cams. I do like those virtual cams. So I guess we will end for today. Thanks everyone for coming out, listening, and all that stuff. Of course, we will be here for high noon. We will be doing high noon here on YouTube and on Twitch. We got to figure out a schedule for doing Twitch. Probably won't be tonight for sure because I got to go help out at my church. Okay, wait, what? What was my favorite part of John's stream? The end. No. I don't know. It was all fun. It's nice having the fun camaraderie. I'm not much of the cult of Raven, so the only part that seemed to pertain to me was obviously near the beginning when it was possible that I was being ostracized by the cult of Raven, but I wasn't. And of course, for those that know about the cult of Raven, it's, as far as I know, just supposed to be a fun thing, which for those that are in it, just to have a good time. Bug those that like Starfire. Just because I think one character out of the Teen Titans is the best. It's not so much a cult, but a fan club, I would say. They just call it a cult. It's really bad. So yeah, it was all good, you know. Reading the comments was fun and all that. So I don't know. It's hard to pick out one exact spot, I would say. But that said, I think like I said, I'm going to end because we're done the book, we're done the reading, we're done the verse. Not a lot here talking about the book. So we'll see you at noon, either here or on Twitch. So bye for now. God bless. Love you all. Have a great and wonderful day.